explain.
All right. Hello to everybody. Good day, good day. This is an interview with an artist who has been illustrating an old classic book. The book is called Black Beauty. I think it's written by the end of the 1800s and is regarded a classic. So this is very much in the interest scope of the Corncrake, which is here to highlight and present what we regard as high literature. And with us today, we have the illustrator who's illustrated the book. To talk about the illustration process and illuminating this book and bringing it to life. And she's galloping onto stage right now. So, welcome to you, Ruxandra. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you for having me. I just got off my horse.
You just got off your horse?
Yeah, I got off my horse, landed on the couch in my living room, and looking forward to this interview.
All right. How much coordination does that require?
Quite a bit of experience, I would say. It's not a beginner's trick.
No, because you are actually experienced with horses, right?
I would like to think so, yes.
Yeah? In what way?
Well, so the first thing about horses, I think this was my second word that I've ever uttered after I was born. I don't know whether my first word was mom or dad, and then it was horses. It was the plural because in Romanian the word is very short, and you have kai, which is the plural of horse. So I had this natural inclination towards horses, and might have been genetic because my dad is the same. And so growing up, I was lucky enough that we had the state-owned stud in the nearby, close to our city. So I did horseback riding for about 12 years.
Was that a state-owned stables, you said?
I'm sorry?
Was that a state-owned stables, you said?
Yeah, it's state-owned stables, exactly. Because the Romanian state invested a lot in preserving certain breeds of horses. We had very good Arabian, purebred Arabian lines. And then we have the Lipizzaner horses, the Baroque horse.
The dancing ones?
Exactly, the white ones. And so I was very close to Arabian horses. I used to ride Arabian horses mostly. Now I'm going into details. I'm going to be finishing soon, I promise. And also a breed that is, I'm not even sure how many there are left. I remember about 15 years ago, there were only 200 purebred Gidran horses left. It's a Hungarian breed that is made for sport, is taller. They have this beautiful reddish coat. And they use for show jumping mostly, and also military horses. So I had the wonderful opportunity to ride those horses as well.
Oh, that sounds really nice.
Yeah,
now,
it's a long history.
For anyone unfamiliar with the aforementioned dancing horses called the Lipizzaner, it's a special kind of horse breed used for a special horse theater in Leipzig in Germany, right?
Yes, it's a breed that is claimed, I think, by at least 4 states. And they're part of the Baroque horse type. So there's a Baroque horse in the artistic sense of Baroque, which is very muscular, has this beautiful arch of the neck. And they look very pompous, and you can imagine them in the Austro-Hungarian Empire. They would look amazing, you know.
Yeah, when you look at them in paintings, they kind of look like a strange blend in between a horse and a cinnamon bun.
Yes, yeah, they do exaggerate it in art quite a bit. Yeah, the horse itself doesn't look like a cinnamon bun. I can assure you.
Okay, good to know.
That's good. Very good. Very accurate.
All right. So you've been quite close to horses from a very young age.
Yes,
And
yes.
none of your parents has told you who got disappointed by your second word.
No,
No, okay.
we never talk
Merciful of
about it.
them. All right, all right. So you have a close relation to horses. And do you also have a close relation to this book?
Yes, it's. I remember I actually started with the movie first. It wasn't actually the movie; it was the TV series from New Zealand, if I'm not mistaken.
A TV series
And
from New Zealand.
I'm sorry.
A TV series from New Zealand.
Yeah, I don't know if you know. It was the Adventures of Black Beauty, and then it was the New Adventures of Black Beauty, and that's what I used to watch when I was about 3 or 4. And because of that, my favorite color was shiny black. I remember because I had the shiny
Ooh.
black horse in mind all the time. So yeah, it just became such an ideal of beauty to me, a black horse with the white star. And then the book, I don't remember. It was at the school library. I actually don't remember when I read it first, but I remember the movie being shown on TV, and it was too sad. I couldn't watch it.
Oh no.
Yes.
When was the first time you watched it?
I think I was in middle school, and it was
Hmm.
on TV, and um, it got sad, and I kind of anticipated what's going to happen. So I was too embarrassed to cry and be seen crying in front of the TV, so I didn't watch it.
Ah, I see. So in one way, these sugar-coated New Zealanders, they kind of set you up for failures because at least the title, Adventures of Black Beauty, kind of sounds very optimistic.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was inspired by the book. I think the only thing in common was the black horse. It
Okay.
was owned by the It was owned by a girl, and everything was just nice with a happy end. I mean, the book has a
Oh,
happy end as well, but it's very hard earned.
I see. So in the book, there's a lot more rough patches that need to be trotted through.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ah, I see, I see.
Absolutely.
So you
So
actually braved the film before you went into the book then?
yes, yes, but that's very early on in my life. I'm talking
Mm.
about. I think I was sitting because TV was so limited in terms of what you would be offered.
Mm.
So of course I would be allowed to watch TV every Saturday morning or something when they would show The Adventures of Black Beauty, and I was about 4 or 5. So I actually do not remember when I read the book, but it must have been somewhere in middle school. And I think I kind of flipped through it. I didn't really read it very carefully because it was so sad,
Oh.
and because there were scenes that I've witnessed myself growing up. Very very cruel scenes actually, and I don't know if there's going to be time for that. I might just mention some things from the book, but
Mm-hmm.
I think it could be a hard read, but it's a very memorable read for a young child, especially a girl who loves horses.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, it's actually a long, long history with Black Beauty. Definitely was a dream job. I was really surprised when I was offered the job
Oh yeah?
because George from Old Sovereign Publishing, they found me over X, which is fantastic.
Hey.
Exactly. So it was kind of by chance.
Ah, that's a very nice chance. Now
Absolutely.
this is a little bit on the sidelines. But are you one of those people who believe in spoilers?
I'm actually one of those people that are very annoying.
Okay?
Uh, I can spoil things. I feel like a movie cannot be spoiled for me if you tell me the end, about the ending, or if you tell me too much about a book. Because I don't really pay attention to the ending. I'm always thinking about the whole aesthetical experience, the structure, how it's built. So yeah, I mean, spoilers don't bother me at all.
Okay, so then we're a bit on the same page then, because I think, yes, you can actually spoil a movie. And if you can spoil it, you should spoil it. Because if you can
Yes,
spoil it, it means that it's trash and you're saving everybody time by spoiling it and not spending any time on it.
absolutely,
There
absolutely.
are
It's
people
not.
that loudly disagree with me as well. And I just throw up my hands and say, why do you want to waste your time that much? But um, but the reason I was wondering about this is because we're talking about a book that is relatively old. Um, And personally, I don't really see the point of like worrying too much about a spoiler in this kind of story. It's a pretty much a well-known story. So I don't necessarily see the point of being overly secretive about it. Do you agree?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's not a product to be consumed, and all it matters is the ending, you know. So if you know what's happening there, that's it. You know, it's not an action book, and you get robbed of experience while reading it. There's so many phrases, so many sentences in that book that are so valuable,
Oh yeah.
and it's not the sum of its components, you know. It's something that I deal with a lot. Complexity. A system is not the sum of its components. A book is not the sum of its chapters. It's the whole experience that you go through as a reader,
Oh
and
yeah.
it's very personal. It's very intimate because of your personal associations with the things that you're reading. So yeah, same book read by two different people. It's two different books in a sense.
Yeah, I see. So do you have an example of any of these phrases or that you just mentioned?
I'm sorry?
Do you have any examples of any of these phrases that stuck with you, or beautifully written sentences?
Yeah, I was
Do
gonna
you
try.
have a small treat?
I was. I just realized last minute that I read the book on Kindle because I
Oh
wanted to
yeah.
read it in English. So I didn't write down and I didn't extract all the quotes from the book, but I have them highlighted. But I have to flip through the pages, and I thought maybe I could just give you a sense. I could read a quote that I liked from the very beginning of the book. I think it's in the very first chapters,
Please
if
do.
that's okay. So just to state, I think the book was written with a very deep Christian thought, feel, and empathy for God's creatures, because you feel that through the book. And if you read about Anna Sewell, she grew up in a very devout Christian family.
Hmm.
And the book was initially written for adults, which is really interesting because we generally think of Black Beauty as being a children's book.
Yep.
However, she wrote it for adults, even though it's almost like an autobiography of the horse.
Hmm.
It doesn't feel childish at all. Now, reading it with a mature mind, I'm really impressed. And this one, the first quote that I found that I highlighted in the book, it says, it's a quote by one of the characters. God had given men reason by which they could find out things for themselves, but he had given animals knowledge which did not depend on reason and which was much more prompt and perfect in its way, and by which they had often saved the lives of men. And the book is full of these wonderful, wonderful quotes, because we realize that animals are not just there to be around for us to steward and administer or just to be used. God gave them senses that we don't have actually. And there's so many situations in which animals saved people's lives and we depend on animals. And I can go on and on and on with this, you know, like the history was written from the saddle of the horse
Hmm.
and how many people got saved by their own horse and how much civilization advanced because we tamed the horse.
Yeah.
And it's this deep, deep view that was absolutely necessary in a time which is not completely gone, unfortunately, where animals were seen as tools, not by everybody, but there were no consequences for animal cruelty. And yeah, it was very often in the book, it's repeated that cruelty is a sin, cruelty is a sin. And disregarding God's creation is a sin because
Mm.
God gave these creatures life. And I could go on a Christian tangent right now, but you know, if you read in the
Yeah.
book of Job, when God talks about animals, he says, "I gave them life just as I gave you life." I mean, not that
Mm.
animals are on the same level with humans, but it's the gift of life and everything. And if you don't respect that, then it's a problem how you see the Creator.
Mm.
So that's one of the profound messages of the book.
I see.
Yeah.
So I realize we've kind of been skirting around this a little bit, but could you give us a quick summary of what actually happens in the book?
Oh yes, sorry, because I have the problem going on tangents. So the story is about a beautiful black horse. I'm just gonna try to make it as short as possible. a beautiful black horse that is born in a very idyllic environment. And every chapter introduces new aspects from the life of a horse. You know that the Black Beauty's mother had another foal that was given, it was sold probably to someone, and they witnessed that horse being ridden down to his death in a hunting event. And then sad family stories, they have to sell the horses, and the horse goes through different owners that are basically archetypes of horse owners, basically. Cruel
Uh-huh.
people, people who abuse them, people who are good-hearted, but they have a problem with alcohol and then they lose control. And so the whole story is basically Black Beauty experiencing the harshness of a horse's life. And in the end, he's kind of broken. He breaks his knees at some point, but he ends up being sold to the stable boy that he grew up closest to in the whole
Aw.
journey. So he sees the beautiful life as well. He has it. There's, I think, 3 moments. The early moment, there's a second owner where they have a really, really good life, but he has to be resold again. And it's tough because you feel the suffering of both people and animals. You know, the owner's wife gets sick or their daughters get sick, and they have to move. They can't afford to move with the whole farm. They have to sell what they have. So it's just circumstances of life, and then it's also agency. But it's a happy ending because he ends up in a happy place,
Aw.
happy as a horse can be, with the man that he loves and who loves him. So that's a happy end.
I see, I see. And one way, though it kind of sounds a bit like also a transcending horse in many ways, because they say that animals are like this, that they are often like their first owner leaves a huge imprint on them. For example, dogs, they get
Yeah.
their behavior. It's pretty much set on how they're being treated in every life. But that is not the case with this horse. Or would you say that it is?
Yeah, I think it is because how Black Beauty starts his life is idyllic. It's what a horse needs, and it's true because the first chapter is about how he grew up and he had a very nice mare, and he was taught how to always obey and please the master. And because of the first years of his life were like that, then the rest of his journey was actually easier because he built this character of always trying to please the master no matter what. And that's it could have been the other way around. If the
It
early
could have been
years
an
were
unlucky horse and just being born
exactly.
straight into a salt mine like a donkey.
Yeah, exactly. As we have the example of another horse in the book, Ginger, and she's a horse who's been exploited and beaten very, very harshly, and therefore she started to become very skittish and aggressive herself until she was bought by a master who had a lot of patience for her.
Aw.
So she started to recover, which is real. This is something that happens. This are real behaviors in horses.
I see, I see. I have another question then, because this is, as what you're describing is a story that empathizes a lot with animals, which has which has through the times has turned quite into a very popular genre. Like there are a myriad of Disney films based on this. And sometimes it leads to some very, very simplistic storytelling, like animals good, humans bad, something which I will call Disney syndrome. Would you say that this is a story that suffers from Disney syndrome?
Yeah, when I think about most Disney movies, it's a huge difference. It's a huge difference. Yeah, because it emphasizes human virtue a lot.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And human beings are the central figures because they are the stewards of creation, and you feel that in the book. And animals suffer when men are cruel, and animals are happy when men are virtuous and godly. So it all depends on man, of course. But the book is very, very profound. I mean, it's not simplistic in any way. And knowing horses, I can definitely tell that this woman is someone who had such a, I would say, a talent of understanding horse psychology. She definitely spent a lot of time around horses, and she understood behaviors and what behaviors mean in the horse language, which really impressed me.
I see. Yeah, there are some people that seems to have a natural talent for that. One of my neighbors seems to be those, and you can basically look at it and say, "Oh, that one is really thirsty," or that one probably stepped on something yesterday.
Yeah, it's a sort of empathy that some people have more. Yeah.
I see. So, do you think it's a coincidence that this was, this is a book that's written in, I guess, what we would call peak industrialization, where you mentioned things that things are not necessarily just a sum of its part, but it's written in a highly industrious Britain, where things are basically says more and more just being seen as merchandise and commodities to be made and sold as quickly as possible.
It's a great question. I usually am very careful when is it because when something happens, is it because of that? Is it because of this that started this phenomena? It definitely happened at a larger scale.
Yeah.
The growth of the industry also meant, at least for a while, more use of horses. Did they have a worse life than 100 years ago? I don't know. I can't tell. I know that the bad things have always happened and the good things always happened likewise. So it's but I do feel like it was the proper time to publish a book like that to get the audience and to get the attention. Yeah, in its details, I really do think that it wasn't a coincidence. It was a proper time. It was a very good time. Yeah, because things were moving, society was moving, and you can't move forward while making the same mistakes. So I think it was a key moment.
I see. All right. So we're moving close to halfway. We're getting close to being halfway through the interview, and this edition of the book that you've been illustrating, is it available for sale yet?
It is. You can pre-order it, and
you can pre-order it.
Yeah, you can pre-order it, and I think it's going to be ready in January, just after New Year. There were some slight delays, but there was. I'm not sure if that's still available, but you might still get a signed copy. So there's a series of 10 books that George from Old Sovereign, he announced that there will be signed, so he's going to send them to me. I'm going to sign them personally and send them. But you can definitely still pre-order the book. Definitely time for that, and yeah, hopefully it will go well.
Yeah, I hope so as well. And it's been whispered into my ear that you might actually find a link in the description of this live stream that you can click on to pre-order it. And I would, of course, encourage everyone to do that. And it's getting close to Christmas as well. And you're saying that it'd be out in January. But for Christmas, we give each other gifts. And you can also give people gifts outside of Christmas. And what kind of person would you give this book to?
Of course, people who love horses.
Yep.
People who love art, because I find it to be, I really love the idea of from Old Sovereign Publishing, because they reissue the classics, but they reissue them as both a classic and an art album somehow. It's a very interesting combination. So it's supposed to showcase really good art. So just as with the other books, people who love art, people who love horses, people who love beauty, I think, and aesthetics in general.
High-end audience.
Yes, everybody.
Okay. So receiving this book as a gift, that is basically a badge of honor, according to you, because you give this to like a person of high caliber, the person who likes the finer things in life.
Yeah, I definitely think so. It's also a book that you keep for life because they're so well made, and it's like collectibles. You keep that book to pass it on. It should last that long.
Oh, that's beautiful. Well, you heard that, everybody. If you know somebody beautiful, you know what to give them. Now you need to give them this book.
And of course, one of the main the target group would be young girls.
Young
That's
girls.
young girls, definitely.
I see, I see. Anyway, I thought we might have a look at some of your illustrations. And I want to begin with my favorite, which I think is, yeah, it's this one.
Yeah, we're starting with the end.
Yes. No, it's my favorite because I've worked a little bit in comic books. I worked a little bit in animation and so on, and they were always taught to think in silhouette to
Oh, I see. Yeah.
to express things immediately. And from an artistic point of view, this does this very, very strongly, very, very efficiently. So the animation nerd in me really, really appreciates this one. And you say
I'm
this
really
is,
happy to hear.
and you say this is from the end of the book. So is that the old stable boy that has
Yes, yes.
that
Show is
that
reunited with Black Beauty, and I thought about it. I wanted to be an apple tree. It's not mentioned in the book, but that's how it started. That's how the book starts, under the apple trees, on a beautiful meadow. So I wanted to end it somewhat in the same key.
I see, I see. Now, a little spoiler here. Not all of your illustrations are in silhouette like this, but is there a particular reason why you went for like a silhouette composition for the last illustration of the book?
It's definitely a very good reason, but I can't really rationalize it. It's just a strong feeling.
Hmm?
It feels like when you have the silhouette, it just draws you in a different way,
Mm-hmm.
and you feel like you want to be there. It's distant but near,
Yeah.
but it works. I mean, it makes your imagination run further, I think, as a
Yeah.
viewer. So I wanted that for the viewer. I wanted the viewer to, yeah, think further for themselves, not to have too many details, for it not to be too descriptive, more like a metaphor, so they could imagine the scene themselves with their own associations and experience.
Yeah, I see. And another effect you get by working in silhouette, of course, is that you get the sunset effect. And a setting sun effect is also, of course, a very good effect. Effective. It's very effective when you want to conclude something because the sun is setting, it's getting done now. And I think that's also part of what draws people in, because when the sun is setting, you only have a limited time to experience this because it's going to get dark soon. So it adds a bit of, how should I say, a sense of urgency to the viewing experience. Does that make
Oh,
sense?
that's really beautiful. That's very beautiful. I didn't think about that, but now I'm thinking about it. Yeah, it's a passing moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, seize the moment. That's what it feels like. Yeah, I don't think very technically in these things. I mean, sometimes I'm very technical, but in my choices, now that you mention these things, I'm actually thinking that that really makes sense. But I usually go with the feeling. I want to create this mood and this feeling, and I think this works. So that's how far I think. I don't think about, okay, I know this technique is usually associated with this particular mood, or that. I don't have that thought process usually.
So you intuited it.
Yeah, definitely.
Ah. Well, I have to give you hats off then, because you're working with horses, and anyone who's been into drawing will know that horses have a certain reputation, and that is that as soon as you start drawing on them, it's very hard to stay in your intuition, because there's that many technicalities, that many limbs and joints and bones and muscles to keep track of, and it tends to force you to be very, very analytical. Um, how was
Definitely.
how was that for you? Because you're not just drawn one horse here; you're drawn like a dozen of them.
Yes. Well, I think it's very obviously, as an artist, you have to learn. You have to learn the fundamentals. You have to learn perspective. You have to learn basic shapes, how they respond to light, how shadow is cast, and then learn anatomy. And
Hmm.
because I spend a lot of time with horses, I know their anatomy. I've been riding horses. I've been looking at them, and I I have a lot of patience with my drawings. I have a lot of patience when I draw because I really find it to be such a pleasurable act to just sit down and think about this. The architecture of the muscle here is so amazing. I want to spend time on it. but also because I already have in my mind the ideal horse type somehow. It's like I have horse archetypes. So I already have an ideal figure for this type of horse or for this type of horse. So I kind of know where I'm going, if that makes
Oh, so you
sense.
have like several platonic horses within your
Yes,
imagination.
yes, I have platonic horses, exactly.
Ah,
That's yeah, that's a perfect yeah, perfect analogy.
I see, I see. But on a technical note, on which page, according to you, will we find the most technically challenging illustration?
I don't know, but
No?
actually surprisingly, the greatest technical difficulty was for me because I never scanned watercolors, and we agreed to do watercolors.
Mm-hmm.
So when I do watercolors, I usually use a good camera and I photograph the watercolor in
Yeah.
good even light, but I never scan them.
No?
So this was the first time that I scanned the watercolors and I could see how much it altered the colors. So that was quite a task because I had to adjust it, but not too much to alter the original image. I wanted to be as close as possible to what I'm holding in my hand.
Mm-hmm.
So that was actually quite a challenge, and I learned that I have to work with colors a little bit different when I'm scanning.
Okay.
They have to be, yeah, I have to be more technical about the consistency of the pigments, what kind of pigments I'm using, how they reflect light, and make the paintings brighter, actually.
Yeah, because
Yeah, a lot
you
brighter.
need to adapt you need to adapt your work to a very specific kind of light, because this is not your regular light coming in from your window or your lamp. This is this very bright white light that comes from the scanner.
Yes, yes, and that's actually I was surprised. I never thought about it before. And it's the first time because I never scanned in ink. You scan it and it's very
Ah.
straightforward. But the watercolor definitely does.
Oh,
Yeah, that was the difficulty.
were there any one of these then that you kind of had to redo due to the scanning process?
No, not because of the scanning process. I redid the hunting scene because I didn't like it initially.
All right. On which page is that?
It should be in the beginning. I think it's the second illustration of the book. It's exactly, exactly,
Oh, okay.
exactly. So that's
So what's going on here?
so this is the scene I briefly mentioned it in the beginning. It's Black Beauty's mom, and then there's another foal, I think. They're together on this meadow under the apple tree,
Mm-hmm.
and they're looking over. There's a creek, and there's this hunting scene where one of the riders, a young man, he's quite reckless with the horse, and the horse stumps. He falls down. We don't know exactly what happens. I think with the rider, he lost conscious, and I think the horse died. And it just reveals the book reveals afterwards that Black Beauty's mom reacted in a way that was quite unusual, but we find out that was Black Beauty's brother who died in front of her.
Aha.
Yeah. So it's all down from imagination.
Mm-hmm.
I did some research on Cotswolds because I wanted to know exactly how the
Excuse me, some research on what?
Cotswolds, I think, is the region in England.
Ah, okay. Thank you.
So I did research on that. I looked. I've only been to rural England once in my life. I didn't get to see much, but I wanted to see how the hills look. You know, the geomorphology, the
Mm-hmm.
landscape, and then I did it from imagination. But the problem is, I sometimes overcrowd the drawing, so it was too crowded. I simplified it. I redid it. So yeah, that's.
Yeah, it's very easy to do that. I don't necessarily know where it comes from, but I remember from being very small when you're getting crayons and like you feel happy with something, and somebody comes along. What? You're not done? You haven't filled the entire paper yet?
Yeah, I think it's the overcorrection. You want to overcorrect and you want things to be just.
Yeah. Or especially if they're giving drawing as a task to be distracted. Like, what? You're still not distracted? There's blank space on that page.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's yeah, modern psychology would say that's ADHD, but we all have it in that regard.
Yeah.
We all do. Yeah, it probably means a lot of things. It probably
Mm.
says a lot of things about us.
Yeah. No, I've done the same thing myself. I overcrowd as well. and then it usually turns a lot easier by simplifying and thinking in silhouette. As we mentioned on the last page, is something that it really helps that out, because if it's too messy, all the silhouettes just bleed into each other, and everything looks like this kind of strange kind of multi-limbed mutant.
Yes, yeah, that's true. No, just because I'm in front of the camera, I don't remember, but I don't know who said it. He was one of the old masters. I guess there was, I'm paraphrasing, that the work is finished once you remove everything that is to be removed.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, think about sculpting, that's kind of you removing matter from it. But
Yeah.
it requires a different kind of, I think the more you mature as an artist, the more you refine a sense of simplifying, not in a reductionist way, simplifying to perfect it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So exactly. You're seeing the ideal shape in something. You're seeing, for example, you're seeing a piece of marble, and this is too much marble. Let me perfect this. This is just
Exactly.
this is the perfect amount. So it's not necessarily the Yngwie Malmsteen approach. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Which approach?
The Yngwie Malmsteen approach.
No, I
Now,
don't know.
to be fair, he's not a painter or a draftsman. He was a guitar player,
Okay.
but he was very, very fond of um, filling all of his works and all of his tracks with as many notes as possible. He like to call it baroque and roll. And there's this very fun interview with him where he's being asked about the idea of that less is more, and he just has a complete he just doesn't compute it, that less is more. That's not possible. More is more.
Yeah, I was thinking that I might go in the direction of too many notes. I remember it was in Amadeus, the movie. There was a criticism towards Mozart. It's too many notes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that line very well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then Mozart facetiously goes, "Yeah, I see. I obviously get the problem. So I would be very, very grateful if this expert could pick the proper notes to take out."
That's true. Yeah, it follows.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. It's a great movie.
Yeah, a very graceful response.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Because
although
it's
Mozart was not the kind of bad example of too many notes, I would say. Yeah.
nah. But that is a different story. We're focusing on Black Beauty now, but it's a fun movie. I quite love it as well.
Yeah, sorry, I'm going on tangents again.
Yeah. Well, we have plenty of time. All right. So, and let's see. There was another illustration that stuck out to me as well. Or wait, we already went to the beginning, so we went to the end. So let's go to the beginning.
Yes. Yes, that's the
Is this
first.
Black Beauty being born?
The first week of his life, I would say. It's not.
Mm-hmm.
And I really wanted to make an idyllic scene. Yeah, I think another technical challenge I admitted is the vertical illustration, because we wanted to fit on the left page. So
Mm-hmm.
all of these illustrations I would normally do in landscape format.
Okay, yeah.
For obvious reasons, it's the horse, and then there's the landscape, and you have carriages, and everything happens horizontally.
Yeah.
So it was a challenge to make it fit in this format.
Yeah, because
But
horses don't fly; they don't go upwards. So if you wanted to pick the movement, the standing format isn't necessarily the optimal.
No, there are flying horses.
There are.
I don't take a different opinion on that, but yeah, it's that. Yeah, it's that. It's also the shape of the horse, and it was difficult to envision it initially.
Yeah, and of course, in a book that is a standing format, if you make all of them in a reclining format, you will have to shrink them a lot, and then you will just
Yes.
end up with a novel with a lot of stamp-sized illustrations.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I looked at my favorite Russian illustrators, actually, that I grew up with. And I just want to mention, I've been posting about him, Nikolai Kachergin. I'm saying it with the Russian accent. But he's probably one of my favorite illustrators in terms of how he drew horses. Very
Yeah.
idealized, but very close to how I want to see horses being drawn. And a lot of the books that he illustrated were also vertical. So he solved that problem very, very well in a very superb decorative style. But this one was also monochrome. It tried to make something actually quite original in a sense.
Well, I'd love to see an example of that. You have to send it to me later.
Yes, I will definitely will. Yeah, I have a lot of pictures on my computer.
Because I'm also not really good at figuring out how to spell Russian names.
Yeah, it's very difficult. If I say that, it doesn't make any sense unless you're Russian or you already know him. But yeah.
But returning to this illustration, you said you wanted to go for an idyllic scene. So you're definitely hitting one of my notes here by having lots of water nearby. I grew up next to a lake, so of course this to me is already really idyllic. Is water something you put in to create scenes of sereneness, or is this something that's dictated by the book?
It's dictated by the book, but I do have that association with water as well. It's especially still water, if it's a lake, it really gives that serenity. If you think about the Russian landscapes with lakes by Levitan, for instance, they're always so much peace and stillness. It's very pleasant to look at. Just the idea, just a few reflections of the trees. You don't need to add many details in the water, and your mind already recognizes the stillness of a lake. So
now where are these lakes? Because my imagination, when you say Russians, it doesn't necessarily go to lakes. It usually goes to steppes.
oh no, that's that's a big part of the Eurasian Russia, but yeah, I was just thinking about the paintings that because I learned most from the Russian method. That's my teacher, the Russian academic method. So I'm thinking about the big painters. But this is English landscape. This has to be typically English. A meadow, a lake, beautiful house in the back, and just fields and soft hills. That's how the whole landscape of Black Beauty looks like in its idyllic form, except for London.
Right. Now, I'm getting curious from an artist's perspective here. What would you say sets this Russian method apart?
It's I think it's very truthful because, of course, I think it's the French academic method as the original one after the Renaissance. It's a long story. But I think the peak of Russian academic drawing is, of course, 19th century with Ilya Repin. Therefore, you have the Repin Academy. And I would say it's very truthful. It's a constructive approach. You learn anatomy like in med school. I didn't learn anatomy like that. All I need is just to recognize anatomy. I recognize that's the muscle. But I don't know it by heart. And it's, I think it looks to construct things in a very truthful way and not to prettify them.
I see. Not to put too many sparkles on it.
No, it's not. It can sometimes look rough when it's in more sketchy form.
Yeah.
But it's very, very convincing.
I
and
see.
I think I have to think a little bit more about how to describe it.
But when I listen to you now, to me it sounds a bit like a very down-to-earth kind of, maybe a bit terse approach to the Renaissance approach, where you're supposed to internalize the creation.
Exactly.
Remember the muscles, remember how it's built up from the inside.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've heard that they have exams where, you have to draw a muscle in a particular type of flexion. So you have to remember how that muscle looks flexed without any reference. So you have to draw it. That's a new level, but it is like that. And I think the opposite is not the opposite. If you think about Norman Rockwell, that's an illustration.
Yes.
Illustration type. But if I put that compared to an illustration of roughly the same kind in Russia, Norman Rockwell is very photographic, has these candy colors somehow, they really attract the eye. Whereas the Russian looks more into the decorative, more design, and sometimes more simplified, but at the same time you see that they really master the shape.
Yeah. I see. No, for
It's
anyone
not polished.
unfamiliar,
It's not super polished. It's not
no.
like you really polish a shoe really, really hard. You don't need that. You just need to see the leather somehow. Hard to describe. Yeah.
It sounds a bit like a more pragmatic approach.
Yeah, I feel would be a more pragmatic approach, yes.
I see. All right. Ooh. So that was the yeah. So thanks for enlightening me about the Russian approach.
Yeah, you're welcome. I could talk a lot because I feel like in other places it kind of art went into some sort of competition with photography, whereas the Russian approach tried to find a way around it, make it
Yeah.
look like a painting, but it's even more revealing that a picture, that a photograph somehow.
I see.
Yeah.
It
So yeah,
reveals
sorry,
an
I took a lot
underlying.
of time.
Yeah, it reveals an underlying truth, you might say.
Yes. Yeah,
All right.
that's beautifully said.
Now, onto an illustration that stands out a bit from the rest of them, because most of the illustrations in this book are themed in this purplish black, whereas this one is coated in brown. Is there a particular reason for that?
Well, it's inside the stable. It's a lot of wood. It's a lot of hay. And then there's Black Beauty, Ginger, the red horse, and Mary likes the pony, which is a very, very sweet, kind character. Very wise. The pony is the wisest. He understands humans and everything that's going on. And so it's this. There should be some sort of warmth from the light coming through the windows. I think the only, maybe I shouldn't say, but the thing is, like, I drew this, the inside of the stable having an Austro-Hungarian stable in mind, which I was used to.
Okay.
I think it's a slightly different window type than the English stable. But it's also because I really like rusty colors, browns and earthy tones that are warm. So like burnt ceramic idea somehow. But
The
it really fitted
down-to-earth
well into the
ones.
scene. Sorry?
The down-to-earth ones.
Yes.
Would you say this is another influence of this Russian approach?
I don't know. I not necessarily. I think this is like a personal preference. Because there's big skyscapes, and the Russian approach also went into like the art during the Cold War, a lot of space exploration themes. So it's not necessarily telluric, like down to earth in a literal sense.
I see.
But yeah, I don't know. It's just a personal preference, and I want it to be warm.
Now I have another question now, getting maybe curious, because you're the horse expert out of us two. You've been around them more, and you said that this pony he understands humans very well. Are ponies really like that?
That's a very sweet question. Most ponies that there are a few ponies at every stable that I've visited. They're usually very, very, very intelligent. Ponies are really intelligent. There's something to ponies. They're very, very smart. They learn things. They learn things very easily, and they always do tricks, to manipulate you or to attract your attention.
Really?
Yeah, they can be very, very sweet. But the horses do the same thing. It's just like the small horses, they seem to have a different energy, like small mice. They move in a different way. Yeah.
Oh, so it's a bit reversed then. So would you say then, of course, they're not vicious in the same way, but would you say then that the pony here is the Jurassic Park equivalent to the scheming raptor that opens doors?
No, he's not scheming. He's just wise and smart here. He's just wise and smart and brings peace every time. And he brings an explanation. We shouldn't think like that. We should be like this.
Clever in that way.
For our own good. Yeah.
Yeah, so not clever in a creepy way that if you're not careful, there might be a gang of ponies ganging up from around the corner from around the corner of the barn.
No. The horse that I used to ride had tricks like that, though.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's I used to ride this shaggy Arabian. He was a white stallion, really beautiful. It had this really beautiful dark eyes, and some white Arabian horses. It's like they have eyeliner around.
Oh.
And it's such a pretty contrast. And sometimes he would not be in the mood to have the saddle on, and I could see like one of the stable boys, he would prepare him, put the blanket, put the saddle on. And I didn't say anything because I knew that this is going to happen. and he would inhale a lot of air when the stable boy would not look at him, and just keep it in, so you'd be really swollen. And the man would put the saddle on, put everything on, and then he would try to get up on the horse, try the saddle, and then he would exhale everything. The saddle would reverse, he would just be on the floor cursing, and the horse would look at him as if he was laughing at him. I can't even describe it. You have to see that. So sneaky. Yeah.
That's actually really clever as well. I never been in this experience, but I heard that if somebody tries to tie your hands, you should really try to tense your muscles or increase the volume as much as you can before, so you can kind of try to give yourself wiggle room for later. And this is basically the horse, and that's basically the horse doing the same thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, exactly.
Spy horse.
He did that many times, actually. He got away every time. Yeah, horses. The horses can be like that. They're very, very intelligent creatures.
Yeah. So we're edging close to an hour. Is there a last illustration that you'd like to highlight?
Can you go through them a little bit?
Yes.
Maybe.
So we've gone through this number 1.
Yes.
We've gone to this number 2.
Yeah, this is the first time he gets. You can go through them. I can say something if you have time.
Yeah.
So this is Black Beauty, first time having his horseshoes put on.
Yes, but you don't have any strong preference. You don't have a strong preference yourself?
I don't know. Maybe it was the I think one that I completely drew from imagination was with the lady stopping the carriage.
Ooh, let's have a look at that one. Let's see.
Yeah, I think it's
not this one.
Yeah. Oh, I love this one. It was the Lady Anne.
Yeah, let's go with this one because this is exciting. It has lots of movement.
Yeah, that was it was a sad scene because
I think it looks quite lively.
Yeah, it doesn't end well in the story.
Oh, no.
It's a very sweet girl, very, very good writer, very accomplished writer. And she really wants to try this mare who's quite skittish and gets scared and very hard to control. I think it was her cousin that he didn't want to allow her to try. But the horse got scared, and then behind is Black Beauty chasing her. And her cousin is riding Black Beauty. And she jumps over, I forgot, she jumps over a creek or something. There's a specific terminology there. And she falls down, she loses consciousness. So I had to show like the very out of control scene. Her head is falling back and horse is jumping. A lot of dust in the air, but also wanted to make it decorative and have this diagonal perspective. Yeah,
no, I would say of the ones I've gone through the illustrations myself, and everyone else should do as well. They should buy the book. And this is the one that definitely one of them that fills this vertical format the most.
Yes, yeah, I do agree.
And also without crowding it, because you have, because you use the empty space quite well here to show the height of the kick.
Oh, that's good to hear, because I really tried to use that space. I was very intentional about it. Yeah, I think there's some that I really like aesthetically, like the bridge scene, because I used because it's fountain pen ink, and I learned how to manipulate it to kind of separate the pigments, because there's a mixture of pigments and it dyes basically. So it was like a watercolor wash with the dark sky. There's, I think, one of the first ones, and Black Beauty is carrying is on a carriage, and the bridge is broken, and they have to stop. So the whole skyscape is quite nice to look at for me as well.
So which page do we find this?
It should be in the beginning. I think it should be after Lady Anne. Maybe next one.
Lady Anne, is the one
this after this one?
Yeah, let's have a look.
This is when he was sick. This was very sad scene.
Yeah, indeed. It's like the entire background is weeping.
Oh yeah, I didn't think about that, but I like the feel. It was kind of in this, but you could see the dark clouds. I don't know if you can see it yourself on your screen. Should be after this, maybe. I think it's the next one.
Let's have a look.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now that's a dramatic sky, absolutely.
Yeah, I really love working on it. I really loved working on it. And this one was, it took a lot of thinking in terms of planning and less time than I expecting in actually executing the plan. But it's definitely one of my favorites, most enjoyable processes here. Yeah.
It seems like a very hard scene to balance because, just technically speaking here, because you managed to keep the silhouette of the horse here very, very clear within that little speck of light towards the horizon in a generally quite dark scene. Did it take many attempts?
The thing is, I did it, and I have a small square sketchbook, and I did it horizontally, almost panoramic. And I just had this idea, and as soon as I start putting lines on the page or just the ink, I kind of had a feel of how it should look like. And I'm kind of used to, from the Russian method, I kind of learned how to use contrast because you want to emphasize the figure in ways that are not too obvious. So if the figure is dark, you want to have something lighter, so it makes sense that it's at the horizon line. That just came very naturally, actually, from my first attempt. It was difficult to put it horizontally, so then I thought, okay, put more sky, more drama. So yes. I think it worked.
Yeah, there's definitely tons of thunder and rain and lots of drama being pent up in all these clouds.
Yeah, that's I know it's also supposed to be over flooded and see the water. It's a little bit more still because it's after the worst part of the rain. So, yeah, that was great to work on.
All right. Now, rumor tells me that you're a very busy person these days, so I think this might be a good point to end. Would you agree?
Yes, unfortunately, yes. Yeah,
it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much for having me. That was really wonderful, and you had amazing insights. Very, very insightful. I'm repeating the word, but I learned things about my own drawings, which is things that I never thought about.
Oh, you're being very, very generous now, but thank you.
No, but you're the professional, so I'm very happy that first of all, that you took a look at my drawings, and then we had the chance to discuss, to talk about it.
And that was a pleasure. And I'm also going to repeat myself. Everybody who enjoys these illustrations should definitely check the link to see where they can pre-order the book. Of course, all of you should find that other link to the website of the Corncrake and go read that magazine and grow the garden in your mind. Any other last words you would like to give to anyone watching before we leave?
Well, since it's about the book, I really think this is a great investment. It's not a very affordable book. It's not like the normal books that you buy, but you have to consider the quality of it. And it's something that's going to be on your shelves as a piece of art, not just as an English classic.
Exactly.
And if you love horses or know somebody who loves horses or could love horses, I think this is beautiful. This is the perfect gift, and it shouldn't be just gifted for one occasion only. It's something that would make someone happy any time of the year. So, yeah.
All right. Thank you for that. Then I thank you very much for your company, and then I wish you also a very Merry Christmas. Have a good evening.
Merry Christmas to you too. Thank you very much.
Or a good day.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.